Hi, everyone. Just give us a couple of minutes. We're going to let everybody get from their last meetings to this one, so we'll start in just 2 minutes here. Thanks. All right. Thank you for being patient. We're going to go ahead and get started. Today's agenda, we're going to be talking about remote IT management with our profiles feature. And we're going to focus, we're going to start with introductions and talk about third-party patching and profiles, because third-party patching is one of our new features and it utilizes one of our existing features, our most powerful, called profiles. We're also going to do a high-level overview of the software. So I'll kind of start out by doing a very, very high-level overview, but Dave's going to do a demo and show the whole product. But we're really going to start out by focusing on this key capability of Bacon. Wanted to change up our webinars a little bit and try to go a little bit deeper today. So with that, why don't we start with introductions? My name is John Marcato. I am the co-founder and CTO of Bacon. And joining me today is Dave Adekoya, one of our senior engineers, and as I usually say on our demos now, my favorite demo guy. So Dave, thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So why don't we just do a little bit of housekeeping, Dave, real quick, and then we'll try to get into this quickly. Probably the couple things to know: if you haven't been on a GoToWebinar before, there is the opportunity to ask questions. So you'll see that over in the right-hand panel there. You can click in there and type any questions you want. We will answer those throughout, probably there in writing, but perhaps verbally on the webinar too, if it is relevant. And also in the webinar, we'll be launching some polls. Those will just pop up on your screen. But we do appreciate the information, helps us guide the webinar and also find out what you're interested in. And then finally, we will be giving away t-shirts to everybody who fills out our survey at the end. It's a very short survey, but it's huge for us to get feedback on what you like, didn't like, what you'd like us to improve on in the webinar. So we would appreciate that. And one final piece of housekeeping, we do have an online YouTube channel. So if you just search Bacon Unlimited on YouTube, you will see our 110 or 120 videos up there. There are a lot there. We call them Bacon Bits. They're short. They give you lots of key information about different capabilities in the software. It can be a great way to learn. There's also some recordings of previous webinars on there. All right, so with that, Dave, why don't we jump into talking about what the product does, and then as soon as we finish that, I'll do a couple polls and we'll get into the demo. All right, so what is Bacon Unlimited? Well, Bacon Unlimited is an endpoint management platform. We manage Windows, Mac, and 8 flavors of Linux. and we do it from anywhere. So it's cross-platform, it's ultra secure no matter where your endpoints live. So different offices in the cloud, sitting at a Starbucks somewhere, or at a trade conference, it doesn't matter. You will be able to centrally manage all of those devices in a secure and near real-time way. So it's got a very modern interface because it is one of the newer tools on the market. We started building it 6 years ago, so we're not sort of tied down by some of the challenges that other platforms are of code that's 15, 20, 30 years old. It was designed to be a very multi-featured tool. In other words, to really give you all the things you need to manage endpoints. So we do things like patching, software installs and uninstalls. We do third-party patching, which means software that is not made by the operating system manufacturer. We can also support those and give full automation to these capabilities. We've got monitoring built in so you can get deep knowledge and understanding of what's going on in your endpoints. It's really important to know when important services fail. It's important to know if you're running out of disk space. You can do all of those things and control all the thresholds and get alerted in ways that matter to you. So Dave's going to be showing off all of that today. But one of our biggest features, and maybe just change the slide here, Dave, to why bacon. Probably one of the biggest features that we have is our profiles feature. Essentially, the profiles feature is a lot of things in one. It's almost hard to describe, but just think of something that can control basically any setting on a machine, and then can also alert on it and do it in an automated way. So if you want to have a particular version of, I don't know, Chrome installed on your computer, not only can you get that installed for the first time, but you can make sure that it stays on the version that you want or gets upgraded to a newer version. We're going to be showing you that today as part of our third-party patching, which utilizes profiles under the hood. So all of that is really the key to Bacon. It's about giving you your time back. It's about knowing that you can get everything done, patched, software installed, and have visibility and awareness on all of it without having to work 70 hours a week. That's kind of the idea. You can have things working for you in the background or over the weekend when you're not even there. So that's what Bacon is all about from a high level. There's probably more to it, but I don't want to stay on that too long. I think we'll just launch a couple of quick polls and then jump right into Dave's portion of this. Lane, if you wouldn't mind, fire off the first poll there. We'll find out what our attendees today are interested in. All right, what operating systems do you support? You could choose any and all from this list, but we do appreciate you letting us know. We're always interested to find out, are these, you just work in a big Windows shop, you have kind of a mix, or you're mostly focused on Mac and iOS. It's really, really great info to have. And seeing it roll in here, and actually surprisingly high Mac OS today. 100% say they manage Windows, but a good portion on Mac and even Linux up there at 40%. So in a second here, it'll, if all the voters go or if the time runs out. Oh, I lost your screen there. There it goes. All right. All right, so 100% have Windows. A lot of you, though, have Mac and iOS and Linux. And so we may not go too in-depth in iOS today, but Dave, we can do some basics if we have some time at the end. Lane, if you wouldn't mind, please launch the second poll. What do you need to automate in your environment? Okay, OS patching, third-party patching. There's probably a lot longer list that people wanted to see, but wanted to see if these are all of interest to people. Security settings, OS configuration, and we'll see how that rolls. Yeah, this one, I kind of almost feel like we need to have more selections only because people need to do most of this stuff. Although third-party software updates and security settings are winning the race right now because I have the screen that shows the polls in progress. And I don't know if everyone can see that or not, but I can.
I can.
And, oh, you can see it too. And well, you're also an organizer. Well, I don't know if everyone else can, but all right. And as we can see, I think security settings is a big one for today, Dave. So let's make sure that we show off a profile that does security settings, but also second behind that is third-party software. So I think we're talking to the right audience here. And we'll really be covering all of these today. So that's exciting. And with that, I think, Dave, we're ready to have you start showing off some of the goods here. And it looks like the crowd that we've got is pretty in line with what it is that we do. So I hand the floor to you and let's get going.
Sounds good. Give me 1 second here. Looks like the screen share kind of bugged out on us.
Okay.
So you can fix this. There we go. All right.
I now see your PDF or your PowerPoint rather.
Yep, there we go. All right. How's that looking?
Looking great. Take it away, sir.
Awesome. So to start off with, we're going to look at profiles specifically through the third-party patching feature we recently released. We're going to install a new application. We're going to upgrade an application that's already installed. And then we're going to go through how to set some power plan settings. And then lastly, configure Windows Firewall. Through this demo, I'm going to kind of jump around and keep multiple things in progress, mainly because kind of watching a loading screen feels a lot longer than it actually is in reality. And so I want to keep the pace going without just kind of staring, waiting for a confirmed screen. So how this is going to work is I have my Bacon tab here. Then I also have my VM in Azure, and this is going to be where we do most of the stuff. So to orient here, we're going to be installing Notepad++. So starting off here, first thing I want to see is if Notepad++ is installed. So I look up Notepad, I don't see anything besides standard Windows Notepad. And then I also want to upgrade Firefox. Right now I'm running a super old version of Firefox. If I open this up and take a peek here, we're running on version, let's say 89 or something like that. 86, so the latest version is 119. So we're going to upgrade this Firefox app as well. So let's go ahead and get started. To start off with, we're going to go to repository and manage packages. How this works is Bacon is hosting this as a service. This allows us to update this table data. So we'll have the package name, the platform, the version, the creator, developer, and then a link to download the file straight from the developer. So how this works is you can manage packages, like I'll just do with this Acrobat one here. Whenever you hit manage, it's going to look through and figure out where to download this file from. In this case, it's going to pull this file from Adobe. So it's not like you're pulling it from our servers. We're just giving you Adobe's official link to grab Adobe Acrobat Reader. Then once managed, you're able to go and create a state. For those of you familiar with Bacon, this will kind of make some sense. This is our method to automatically install or upgrade the application. We went the extra step of adding this feature so it's very simple to just integrate into your existing configuration. It makes a state for you right here, and then you can push this out very simply. So in this demo, we're going to do exactly that. I'm going to use Notepad++. I've made a state for it already. And I'm going to switch over to my states. And we'll see my manage package, Notepad++ here. So first, we're going to put this into a profile. And I'll just name this one like web-install Notepad++. And a refresh rate of 60 minutes is fine. And we can see it selected our state for us. So I'll save. Then over in profiles, I'll go to actions and deploy. I have a group with just one machine with this endpoint already created called November Webinar. And so I'll deploy to this machine. Now, I do see some very familiar names in the chat, so you guys are going to be familiar with how this works. But for everyone else, this will generate a job, as we can see here. And this job will continue to run, and this is going to update this webinar machine with Notepad++. So we're going to let this job run in the background, and while this goes, I'm going to kind of build the other profiles we need for the rest of the demo. So I'll just use a second tab here, and let's go to states, and we're going to build a profile to upgrade Firefox. So same process, we'll hit to profile, call this one web-upgrade Firefox, and save. Excellent. So looks like our Notepad++ job just started, so we'll just do its thing. And this tends to be pretty fast, so it completed for us here. Let's go take a peek at the machine. So now, I'm not sure if this one makes a desktop icon, it may not. However, type in Notepad. Now I have Notepad++ installed on the machine. And I mean, by bacon standards, it took like a couple seconds maybe. Yeah, so pretty fast. So as you're watching me do this, realize that I do this every day, but this will be you once you get up to speed with the software. It's very easy to just go through here and get stuff done. So next up, let's go ahead and do the same thing with Firefox. So we made our profile. Again, I'm going to deploy this to that group. November webinar and deploy. So we do have Firefox open on our computer here. So I'll probably have to close this and reopen once that state completes and we'll see the new version installed. While that's going, again, I'm going to keep building my states. So I have my two software ones. I also wanted to change power options. So let's take a look at this really quick before we go too far. What this state does is it's going to set my plan to high performance, and then it's going to put the computer, or it's going to set up all of the sleep timers. And so the job log will actually show you that as well, which is pretty nice. So let's take a look. On this machine, let's check what power option we have already configured here. All right, so we're currently set to balance. You can tell because the little star is over here. And so we want it to switch to high performance. So we'll build that state, excuse me, that profile. So go to actions, to profile, and call this one web, set power settings, and save. Now again, I am bouncing back and forth just to save a little bit on time. If I take a peek at our job logs, I assume that the Firefox one will have completed by now. Let's see. Still in progress. All right, so let this guy continue while we keep building. The last thing I want to do is I also want to block ping and kind of modify Windows firewall settings. So let's take a look at, should be this one right here, Windows Firewall Bacon Bits. I did a Bacon Bits video on this. It's on our YouTube channel. And what this is going to do is this is going to enable our public profile. It's going to disable our private profile and then allow an inbound ping rule. And so we'll be able to see all those things occur in Windows Firewall. So let me push this one over to a profile as well. All right, let's take a look here. So our upgrade to Firefox completed. And we actually still have this open on the machine. So again, this is version 89, I think it was. And we want to close this and double check. So we're going to close Firefox, close Notepad++. We'll give it a second, and then reopen. So UI changed a bit. If I go over here, the UI changes are a little bit more drastic or more obvious. And when I look at About Firefox, you can now see it's been pushed to 119, and now we're up to date. So hopefully it's a pretty decent example of how easy it is to get all of that running. Next, let's take a look at the other two states we made. We have one for configuring power settings and one for modifying Windows Firewall. So we saw the power settings on this computer. It's set to balanced mode right now. So let's go ahead and deploy the profile to change that. So I have my profile here for set power settings. So I'll deploy this to my webinar group. Okay. And then let's take a look at Windows Firewall while we wait. So I have Windows Firewall open over here. You can see that all three profiles are turned on. Let's just refresh to make sure. We go, all three profiles are turned on. And I'm going to be creating a rule in here under inbound rules that says allow ping. It'll show up above this bacon rule here. So let's go ahead and deploy our profile setting, or excuse me, our firewall setting as well in that profile. Then we can check in both of these together. So let's push out set Windows firewall. And looks like we have two jobs running. So I'll take just a brief pause here while we wait for these two to complete. There is a question in chat from Travis. Says, do I need to build out a new state for every update to a software package, or will this keep my machines updated with the latest version going forward? Awesome question. So how this works is once you have the state created, Bacon is going to keep the latest version of the installer available for you. And so the state will always be running and referencing the latest version. So you'll make the state and profile once, and then the third-party patching and the managed package feature is going to keep the XC or the MSI available for you up to date. So yeah, just make it once, then it'll keep it rolling from there. Good question. And Matt asks, for Notepad++, you didn't first put the exe in files. Correct. So how this works is the managed package feature allows us to automatically download this exe on our own or on its own. So this actually is available in files for you. You could choose to manually deploy any of these executables, but the system's going to keep these up to date for you. So if I look at Notepad++ here, maybe I think it's called Notepad++. Let's see. Let's look at upload date. NPP, there it is. So look at the Notepad++ exe here. You'll see we have two versions. We have one old one and one new one. And in the file menu, we now have an option called Manage. This one's being automatically updated by the Managed Packages feature. So whenever there's a new version, something higher than like 8.5.8, then it'll replace this with the latest version for you. So yeah, it saves you an extra step. And yes, we are adding silent switches and stuff where applicable for these installers behind the curtain, so you don't have to worry about that either through the managed package feature.
Dave, maybe explain how we do give the option to change flags, particularly if you're doing something like an uninstall.
So for uninstalls, a little bit different, but let me go off script really quick. We have in here, if we like open this up, we have the pre-made flags here. So it kind of gives us some uninstall or install arguments. This is stuff that we're managing and keeping up to date. This is how this works. But for the uninstaller, I think, John, you're referring to like the updated uninstall options that we have?
Yeah, that's exactly right. When there isn't one, basically just explaining that, you can add it, you can edit it, right? So.
Oh yeah. So when there's not one, you can edit it. I'm trying to think of a piece of software that we could probably look at. 7-zip?
A 7-zip might have it, but it might already be updated. It also depends.
Yeah,
if it's an MSI, then we already know the flags because they're standardized. But if it's an EXE, then they'll be there, but we also might know it already. So it gets a little tricky. But the point is that you'll be able to edit those if you need to, because sometimes the best example I think is Firefox, right? They do not add flags automatically. So unless you install with an MSI and you use, the EXE, you won't be able to just uninstall it simply. You'll have to know what the flag is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I can't think of one that doesn't have the flag now to like generate that UI option, but what I can do is I'll make a Bacon Bits video on it so we can kind of showcase that feature. All right, so kind of returning back to our initial track here. So I have my power settings state deployed or profile deployed, as well as my Windows firewall one, those both finished. So let's jump on this machine, my webinar machine, and take a look. So let's see my power CFG. So we can see above, it was previously balanced. Now it's been set to high performance. Something nice too, for those not familiar with Bacon, is whenever we do configurations, we tell you everything we did. So here it's going to show you that I set the DC, sleep, and hibernate to 0, but they were already set to 0. So now I have no questions in my mind of the state of this machine, both before and after my changes. because of our logging capability here. Now, on the other side, we did something a little bit more advanced where we looked at Windows Firewall and we were making some changes. So previously we had the private profile was turned on. If I refresh, we can now see the private profiles turned off. I still have domain, I still have public on. And when I look at my inbound rules here, I now have that allow ping inbound rule that I had in my state. So hopefully it gives you like a decent idea of the customization you can do here and the level of effort where you can kind of, in my case, set these up, read some questions from the chat, and also bounce between a couple screens because it really has been made really simple for you. So with that, that's the majority of the features I'm going to show off for just the start of it. From here, we're going to go into our standard Bacon walkthrough. John, before I move over, anything else you want to add?
No, I think we're good to go. Let's, I think the overarching ability to sort of automate these things is really what we've been moving more and more towards, right? So this third-party patching is not something you couldn't do before, but what Bacon couldn't do was automatically go out and discover whether or not software was out of date for you, right? And so now we do. And you couldn't set, if you knew how to make a profile that could dynamically always give you the latest version of a piece of software, well, you kind of could do it, but you still have to download the app yourself and you have to figure out how to do the profile. While we not only get the app and automatically put it in there for, once you've decided you want to manage it, but also it'll automatically, the profile doesn't have to be changed, right? It'll just keep downloading the latest one and updating that, and you have a lot of control over that. But the key point is you don't have to know very much about profiles and things for that to all just happen. So you can do far more automation, and there's great features coming in the near future that will add more automations of that kind to other pieces of or to other areas of the software. I think that's probably it.
Yeah, good point. And kind of showing off that feature you're talking about, here's where you can see in the software list which machines have outdated software versus newer software because we're able to manage that and detect those packages that we have in the other list. All right, so let's return to the overview page. I'm going to do like a standard walkthrough. So what this looks like is we're going to go down the left-hand side of the nav bar and kind of cover different features of Bacon. So right now we're looking at our overview page. This has different widgets that will show you different parts of the environment. So alerts will show you any kind of rules that you've configured that have been triggered. Those can be things like performance indicators for CPU, memory, or disk utilization, as well as things like tracking how many patches a machine has available or even how old those patches are. Maybe you're not too concerned with how many patches they have, but you are concerned if those patches are over, let's say, 15 days old. In that case, you can set up that kind of reminder. Or possibly you want to track different services. Now, these purple ones here, these are our profile alerts. So you can kind of think it's like Windows GPO for profiles, right? It does automation, but it also has an auditing and like double check capability. So here we're able to see which machines are missing profiles that we were trying to deploy for either compliance reasons or installing baseline software, or maybe like earlier pushing out some critical firewall configs. So it makes it pretty simple to get a good look at your environment from just one page. Next up, we have our endpoint indicator that shows you which machines are connected versus disconnected, as well as we've added a warning indicator, which shows you if any of them may have some connectivity issues. Next up, distribution. We are cross-platform. We support Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, so we can see the different operating systems we have installed here. Then we have patching, and so we can see how many patches by operating system we have available to deploy. We have antivirus protection. This allows you to select services on your own, and it will track those as AV and make sure they're running on your endpoints. So in this example, we could have something like Sentinel-1 deployed, and maybe you have an acquisition that's already using CrowdStrike, and they're like, a quarter through the license. It makes it really easy to go through and also select the Falcon sensor service. Then you can track both Sentinel-1 on your side, as well as CrowdStrike for a new acquisition or any kind of split licensing scenarios. And then next, on a security-focused angle, we have encrypted hard drives. This is going to be able to track BitLocker on Windows as well as FileVault on Mac OS. So next up, let's take a look at monitoring really quick. So we have our rules. These are custom configurable, so you can make things like CPU usage indicators. You can track for outdated software now. That's also another feature. And so this is just a base look at it. Whenever we make profiles, you're going to see rules are generated automatically for those too. So if I wanted to make sure everyone had my firewall config, Bacon gives me a super simple way to go in here and activate this rule. So it'll then track this and possibly alert or email me based on machines that don't have my firewall config that I need. Over here in alerts, this is what will happen once your rules are triggered. It'll tell you which machine did it, what the rule is, and what time it triggered. We have integration with Jira and Autotask on the API side to both open and close tickets, as well as we're able to send out emails. So that's good for sending any alerts to your team or to other ticketing systems. Over here on outages, a recently added feature, we're now able to add outage windows for either groups or individual machines. This will silence any kind of alerts that are going through, because I firmly believe it's not a good practice to encourage your team to ignore things, especially when it comes to alerts. We don't want them to be spammy, we want them to be meaningful. So this helps enforce that by keeping the alerts down to, or keeping the false positives down, I should say. Then lastly, we have a knock dashboard. So this gives you a visual indicator as to the health of your environment. You can see I have a pretty big set of red machines here, as well as if I kind of filter, changing up here can change what I'm looking at. I have my green machines and some offline devices. Keep in mind with Bacon, a lot of things can be interacted with. So it's pretty simple to just click on one of these devices and I'll be taken to its endpoint details page, kind of like we saw earlier. Before we jump into that, though, I do want to take a look at the endpoints table. There's a lot of different columns we're able to generate, things like IP address, who's the current logged in user, how many patches you have, what's your OEM serial number, right? These are all really good things to have. And we're able to export this along with most tables in Bacon into an Excel spreadsheet. There we go. That's a hard one every time I say it, I'll be honest. So just keep in mind that when we're looking at different tables, a lot of these can be exported. Then you can do just extra stuff on top of that, like pivot tables and what have you. So with that, let's take a look at our endpoint. So we have 8 different tiles up top, and these are going to change the context of what we see below. So on the left-hand side for system information, we're going to see very similar things to what we saw on the endpoints table. On the right-hand side, we have CPU and RAM indicators, as well as we have the option of adding tags or creating our own custom ones, depending on what you'd like to add in the system, and notes too. And so any tags and notes I add are the same tags and notes that you or other admins will see. As I go through these options, we can see our drive information on the left. And then if I had BitLocker enabled for this Windows desktop, I would have a recovery key, and that updates every hour to make sure it's always being escrowed for us. Next, I can see network device information. So here I have just one Hyper-V adapter. All those could be multiple. It could have this, could have VPN adapters. All those would show up under here. Under policies, I'm able to see what kind of profiles I've deployed. So you can see the 4 that I pushed out earlier. So we can keep track of that. As well as we can see what groups this machine is a member of. In Bacon, we have 2 different kinds of groups. We have dynamic groups and we have static groups. Static groups will be exactly what you think. You just add machines to a group as an admin and it stays that way until you or another admin modifies it. Dynamic groups are a little bit different. Here we're able to use our filters capability to say, hey, I want to track every machine that's online and running Windows. And as machines with Windows come online or are added to Bacon, they'll automatically join this group. If they go offline, they'll leave this group. And so this is a great way to easily deploy things without having to go through and always make sure your machine counts and lists are up to date. Keep in mind that this does work on all the filters, so you could do things like everybody who has an IP address with the first 3 octets of 192.168.42, I want you to be in my East Coast factory network group, and you can split up your sites and stuff like that as well. Returning back to the endpoints page, let's take a look at software. So here's a smaller version of the software list we saw briefly earlier. This one only applies to this machine. However, we do have a nice column on the right-hand side for some additional context. So this can also show you which machines are running the same software that we see here. In this case, Bacon Remote Agent. Number of endpoints running it is 11. And if I click on one of these, we'll see all 11 of those endpoints. Oh, there you go. Here's a good one. The agent doesn't have uninstall parameters. So you could actually update the uninstall parameters here. So when you're pushing the uninstall job, it works as you would expect. Next up, we can see our patching window. I'm going to go over patches for all endpoints kind of further down here, but keep in mind any steps I take can also be done for one endpoint. We keep the process exactly the same between patching 1 or 1,000 endpoints, and so just keep that in mind. Next up, we can see services here. I've already pre-filtered it to just look for antivirus services. How this works is you can go into any service and go to actions and use mark as antivirus. I've done it here just specifically so I can show you the flexibility I was talking about. We don't have like a pre-made list of AV or anything you have to worry about for us to update or keep up to date with. Instead, you can choose any service. So I have Windows Defender, that is AV. I also have Windows Search, which certainly is not AV. So just kind of showing off the flexibility there. Then lastly, we have our logging. This is going to show you everything that's being done on this machine from Bacon's perspective. So you can see here earlier, I deployed a bundle to install that super old version of Firefox. And then with you guys, I deployed these 4 profiles that updated Firefox, installed Notepad++, and then set some OS configurations. Before we get too far away from this, I also want to show off the remote. So in the top right, Bacon has a remote control built into the agent. And so here you're able to connect to that machine. That's what I was using over here to peek on my my Azure VM, is the screen remote. You can actually have multiple people logged in. So it's just me twice, but you can see we have 2 watching up here, so you can collaborate. Then we have a shell remote. This allows you to run command prompt, and then you can always switch into PowerShell for more advanced things, as I'm known to do. And the nice thing here is that this is able to also keep the same session, so you can make any kind of variables you need or do any kind of pseudo scripting, and it's going to retain all that information for you as a normal shell in the machine would. Also, it runs as system, so you shouldn't run into any kind of access issues through this method. Then lastly, we have a file system. This allows you to upload and download files from that machine. So again, pretty simple. You can go through here and just download stuff as you need to, just with like a left click in your browser. Now I just grabbed my super old Firefox MSI being pulled in my browser like that. So we already looked through software, but just another quick view. This shows it for all machines on here, so it makes it pretty simple to just use our search bar to look for something like Chrome, which I typed in earlier, Chrome. And you can see everybody who has some version of Chrome installed. It also gives you a quick option to uninstall software as well. Over on services, very similar. You'll see the services available. You can click on this to get an idea of who's running them and then start and stop based on devices individually. So over in patching, let's take a look at that. So how patching works in Bacon is we reach out to your endpoints, we figure out what kind of patches they need, and then we build one giant table. What that means is you don't have to worry about having a ton of storage for the Bacon server and then worrying about it pushing patches across the network. It's going to gather a list of what everyone needs and instruct them on when to pull that patch. So if I wanted to patch some endpoints, I could select some patches right here, then go to Actions and Install. Here, we're only going to see the machines that need at least one of these patches above. And here we can see that we have 3 patches and they all require a reboot. So we can select some machines, pick 2 of these right here. And then we have our agent scheduling. So install immediately means it'll push out right away. And so that's going to fail on our guy up here because he's currently offline. What I'd prefer to do for patching is use run when connected. This allows us to queue it up and then push out the patches whenever the machines come online. So that one on the bottom gets it right away. One on the top will get it whenever they log in again. I have the option of scheduling a time, so I can pick a time and a date to push this out. Or I have relentless mode. This allows me to schedule a time frame, and then in that time frame, Bacon's going to patch and reboot until either we've installed all the patches or we exceed the time frame. So this is going to be really good for those of you with like tight compliance windows or tight patching windows, I should say. And you want to make sure you get as many patches done as you can, but you also can't babysit 2,000 machines, right? Pretty reasonable. So this is a pretty good feature for that. So down here, we have some modifications of the reboot where we can patch and reboot every time until, again, we run out of time or we get all the patches installed. You can install all of them in one go and then just do one reboot. Or you have the option of not rebooting at all. So for those of you who don't want to reboot end user workstations, makes sense. You can still use the patching window, and that may just be due to, again, change management or bandwidth concerns, but you don't have to worry about the machines rebooting whenever they're patching. Further on the patching side, we have a patch history menu. This shows you all the patches that have been installed. I usually filter this by Windows just so we can get a good idea for most audiences, but it really is tracking every OS. So everything that's been installed, you can see I have 1,100 items here. It's going to track when it was installed, and this is easily searchable and exportable. So you can always make your pivot tables and figure out for compliance reasons or for auditing which machines have certain patches or which machines are missing certain patches. Then over on the compliance side, we have just a quick indicator of how patched your machines are. So this will kind of filter it out by how many patches they have available to them versus how many have been installed, and a little percentage indicator. So maybe you have a machine at 84% here, but it's actually missing 39 patches or 150 patches. That kind of context is important, and so this is a good way to get an idea of the health of your environment from a patching standpoint. So earlier we kind of went into the repository a bit where we looked at the manage packages feature. We still have the same files and bundles available as well. So this allows you to push out individual files, let's say pushing out new Helvetica to marketing department, or you want to place a document on everyone's desktop, that kind of thing. You can push these things from here. And then we also have the option of executing them. So for those of you who are scripters, this is a great way to push things to remote Windows machines without having to worry about all the authentication headache, or maybe they're off VPN. And you can also push installers and everything else through here as well. It's a pretty simple action of going to actions and deploy. And then like most of our menus, you're able to push these out quite simply. We'll pick, let's say, push into Windows, and we'll choose launcher. Then we can just push it out like so to any machine. Maybe add some different flags or a different user to run under. So the question here, will the deploy happen to the offline machine when it's next online, or will it when it's next powered on with internet access? Fantastic question. So you can actually have Bacon set up to only work within your own network, but typically people will have it work from any connection. So you'll expose just the agent ports, and then in this scenario, your deployment will happen whenever the machine is next checking with Bacon, which would be next time it's online with internet access. So awesome question there. All right, kind of finishing up the deployment side, we have bundles. It's going to work just like files, but this allows you to package files together. So a lot of us Windows admins are familiar with the Office customization toolkit, where you can go through and make an or excuse me, you grab an executable and an XML, there we go, and you can customize what gets installed. So maybe you want to install Office, but also Visio, that kind of thing. So in Bacon, we're able to edit these files very easily. You can see here we're trying to install 365 Pro Plus and then Visio Retail, both in the English ID or the English language ID. And so Bacon can grab all three of these files, it's going to push them out to a machine, and then it's going to execute our PowerShell script here. It's just a very simple script that calls the exe/config and points the XML location. So here makes it super simple to push out more complex installs, maybe that either can't be in managed packages or the software is like closed source or behind like a paywall. And so there's another option for you to deploy to your machines quite simply. Next, take a look at profiles and states, kind of an abridged version since we've kind of already seen this. Our states can be thought of as individual configurations, things like setting registry keys, firewall configurations, installing software, setting background wallpaper, right? There's a lot of things you can do with states, even down to just running a script on a schedule. This is a fantastic way to just make sure your scripts are executing on your endpoints. Then these states are put into profiles. This is kind of just a container. So you can have a profile for, let's say, HR that has all their software and configurations all together. You could have one for baseline machine configuration, or like I did here, you can split them up into just one state per profile and keep them all modular. It really depends on whatever you'd like to do. Then once those are deployed, we can kind of jump back into our logs. So I have system logs. The nice thing here is this tracks all of my activities. So you can see the things I was doing in this demo. I jumped onto a machine, I deployed some stuff. And so you're going to see all the things the system is doing in the background. See, I've been working on this computer or this server for a couple days. You can also see your job status. So any kind of jobs going through, what their status was, what you pushed out to machines, all that kind of stuff here. Keep in mind this also has syslog output, so you can have this exported to say Graylog or your SIM or like Splunk, anything like that as well. So lastly, one thing I want to cover is we've added SSO. So we now have SSO options for you to log in with Azure or with Okta credentials. That's pretty great. And that kind of complements the existing AD or LDAP option we had. So if you have on-prem Active Directory, this is great for you. If you're in the Azure AD side of things like us, you can use that, or you can switch over to Okta and do it from there as well, just depending on whatever you need. Then lastly, we have all of our help documentation built into Bacon. So you can see we have our PDF that's appropriate for your Bacon version right here. And then we have our various support options. So we have a Discord server, it's public. You're always welcome to join and ask any questions or just talk about Bacon. We have a YouTube channel. This has all of our Bacon Bits videos we mentioned earlier, and we'll soon have that video I mentioned during this webinar. Then we also have email support in our GitHub. This has some state and script templates to kind of get you up and running with Bacon, as well as our support team is happy to help out with some theory crafting as well. So John, that's kind of what I had for my standard run through. Anything else you wanted to add?
Oh, I think that's great. I think, we've got about 15 minutes left, and the main focus I want to make sure is that people have time to spend a couple minutes and do our survey. Maybe just in the final couple minutes here, I'll just mention a couple of things that we have on the way. And so this is version 4.5. We have already completed and are in testing with version 4.6. I know that probably sounds a little strange, but that's how software works. And 4.6 is a minor release that has some massive scalability capabilities in it. So it's intended to solve some UI problems with list enumeration when lists are really, really large. So there's probably maybe a couple people on this call who maybe know about that. But there's some other things that we're working on at the same time that will be in a little bit later releases like 4, 7, and 8, related to some changes in how we lay out logs to give more easy understanding of the information and being able to use drill downs to really get where you want to go, and also progress bars and things like that. We'll also have a new user service coming, which is pretty much done, but only its first edition. And that edition of the user service, what that really means is that there's many things that would be helped along in all of our jobs as sysadmins if users could be involved in a way that we could control. So all of us can send a Slack or Teams message or whatever we use to an end user and ask them to do something, but it doesn't mean they're going to do it necessarily. So the user service will act as a nag in some ways. It will encourage people and even force people to reboot or take other actions on the system, and it will be customizable to some degree to get people to do important things like reboot after a patch. On Macs, it will help with enrollment of MDM. It will help with getting people to encrypt their hard drives and other actions that require user interface interaction. So I'm very excited about that. The framework and all of the basic pieces of it are built, but now we'll be adding all of the subtleties and customization. So we'll be showing that in demos in the months to come. And there's a lot of other big stuff that we've got going on, improvements to existing features. Probably the biggest there would be the ability in our patching system to use a little bit of an alternate model. Sometimes we think our way of doing things is better than other people's way, and I think that's a natural human instinct, but we listen to a lot of feedback from people, and one of the things I heard recently was a really good case for having recurring schedules and doing more of the approval model of updates. And so today we sort of feel like, well, the approval is deciding to schedule and patch that at a particular time and have it take certain actions. But there are people that have large groups of machines and many subgroupings, and they'd like to set schedules by group. And then when they approve updates, those updates will just automatically get installed on those machines when they apply and to those groups. So that is something that is also in development now. And again, in a couple months down the road here, we'll have that available too. So we really want to become sort of the ultimate patching platform, and are just looking for better and new ways to fix things and improve things in that area every day. All of the other things we do, we're always improving as well, but we know that patching and controlling software has such a key focus for people from a security perspective. So always looking for new ideas there. And it looks like we might have one last question. Does Bacon Client provide MDM control like lock, wipe, so on and so forth? For Mac, it does. So for Windows, the built-in agent, our agent can do that, all of those functions, 100%. But for Mac, the only way to control some of those functions is through their MDM client API, and they block them from the CLI. They take control away from you as the owner of the Mac. And so for those, we've added the MDM function about a year and a half ago, and so you can control everything on a Mac. And we do some things with the agent and some things with the MDM protocol. But yeah, you'll still be able to do all of the things in there. And there's little menus to encrypt, to lock, to wipe, and some other things as well. So yep, it's in there. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. We've got 10 minutes left. I'm going to let you go so you can fill out the survey. We do appreciate that and want to give you an awesome soft t-shirt. And we look forward to chatting with you all soon about your needs. And thank you again. And great job, Dave. We appreciate you coming on and doing the demo. Have everybody out there have a great day.
Have a good one.